Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm Harald Müller. I'm the Director of Development for the IAAF, and I'd like to thank you for coming along. This morning we're going to have two parts here. The first part is about 30 minutes. It's a briefing of the media about the launch of the Biomechanical project reports from the London 27 World Championships. And I'm joined here on stage by the team from Leeds Beckett University and by Ada Bolden, coach and athlete that you're very well aware of. I would like to start here with a short message from our IAAF president, Sepp Coe. He was here in Tampere. He's today in London for the Athletics World Cup. Before he dropped in to the Rabat Diamonds League in Morocco yesterday. So he left a message for all of us, and I would like to present a short busy message from Sepp Coe.
Yesterday we put it in the sound system for here. There is one button you can change the system code. You want me to try or he will try?
I don't know what he's doing. Okay. No, doesn't work. Doesn't work. Okay.
This year's coaching conference in the cradle of the athletics we witnessed here.
Let's do it like that.
Under 20 championships.
I think there's.
We've seen some extraordinary performances, and let me tell you that if you're running an audit on the future of the quality of the sport, we're in good shape. I've seen here in the last few days, but let me say how excited I am. It seems barely credible that it's a year ago, pretty much to this day, that we met at a coaches' conference in London during the World Athletics Championships there. I'm sorry I can't join you for this year's coaching conference in the cradle of the athletics that we've witnessed here in the World Under-20 Championships at Tampere. We've seen some extraordinary performances, and let me tell you that if you're running an audit on the future and the quality of our sport, then we're in good shape given the performances I've seen here in the last few days. But let me say how excited I am that we are launching the work that we've been doing around a core element of the scientific and frankly well-being understanding of athletes, our biomechanical research. This is research that dates back some 30 years, actually to the 1987 World Championships in Rome. We continued that work in '97 in Athens, in 2007 in Osaka, and of course culminating in the work that we did in the World Championships 2017 last year. And let me put that into perspective. This work's been across 76 individual events in London, some 730 athletes, 49 high-definition or speed cameras, culminating in 6,500 hours of work and planning, and some 38 reports that we are releasing today. They're on the website. I know many of you have been waiting with excitement to understand what it is that we have been doing and the reports and the conclusions that we've drawn. And for the eagle-eyed amongst you, you would have probably recognized the amazing contraptions that were on the track, particularly after the events in London where this work has been done. Some of us are not new to biomechanics. I'm, a more mature former athlete now, but biomechanics played a very important part in the development of my own career. I pay particular thanks to the doyen of some of this work, Clyde Williams at Loughborough University, George Gandy, who was my coach and also involved in the biomechanical development of my own career. And why are we so keen? I'm keen because actually a greater understanding of biomechanics allows the athletes to perform at a better and a higher level, and actually crucially reduce the potential and onset of injury, which has to sit at the heart of all the welfare considerations that we have from our sport. So enjoy the reports. Do get onto the IAAF website. They're being launched, as I've said today, and I think it is showing that not just on the field of play in terms of human performance on competitive endeavour, whether it's our under-20s or our senior teams, across all our different manifestations that athletics enjoys. It is also a very, very important part of IAAF innovation. It is absolutely crucial that our scientific innovation and the work that we do around the welfare of athletes is absolutely crucial. World Championships 2017 London, Leeds Beckett University, hotbed of science and understanding, the athletes, welfare, well-being, IAAF innovation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and apologize for the technical problems. I'm happy to say that Leeds Beckett University was much more in command of technology. And I would like now to hand over to our partners, Dr. Bissas, who was the director of the project, and Dr. Tucker, who will guide you through a couple of findings of the research. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harold. Good morning, everyone. I would like, before we start talking about the biomechanics of the championships, just maybe to have a quick flashback from last year's events, so we kind of refresh our memories from what happened. Well, what a fantastic experience that was. So what about the biomechanics project and the team in London last year? What was our approach to the problem? For us, the plan was to capture everything, but not at the cost of quality. To do that, you needed numbers, sheer numbers of staff and equipment. First of all, we had to identify strategic locations around the stadium so we don't miss anything. Therefore, we selected 22 key locations to place our 49 cameras, and we formed a team of 45 scientists. Some key members of the team are today here with us, apart from Catherine, who was the director for the long and triple jumps. We've got Dr. O'Brien Hanley, all of them sitting in the first row, who was the brain behind the calibration system and the leader of the long distances. Dr. Pollitt, who was the director for the 200 and 400 meters, but clearly his work on relays is exceptional. Dr. Garth Nicholson, who was in charge of the high jump with some very interesting results there. Aaron Thomas, together with Alex Dinsdale, analyzed the hammer and the shot. We got some very long and interesting reports there. And finally, Josh Walker, who is the guy responsible for analyzing Usain's, Bolt's, and Gatlin's and Coleman's strides during the 100 meters. He is the guy behind this type of analysis. So thank you guys, and thank all the team, that they are back in Leeds. So once we plan things, then we have to implement. We have to apply our techniques and have the real action. So what we did, we started recording, and we recorded, a lot of data. We recorded 2.9 terabytes of data. But it wasn't just recording, obviously. Recording without science is just recording. We had developed a sophisticated system of calibration, again, thanks to Brian, so we could accurately reproduce what we want to do on the computer and be confident about our results. But then when we finished from London, that was only half of the job done. We returned to Leeds, and we had to do thousands of hours of breaking down the videos into critical phases and convert the images into numbers, really, and figures. And what you're gonna see in the reports, really, it's those videos converted into data. And obviously, we did everything in a different fashion. We used three-dimensional techniques, because that was very crucial for us. At the center of our approach was to have more than one view per event, per action, because we want to capture everything. We didn't want to miss any information. That's a typical example of a data capture that shows three views of the same footage taking place. We had more than 3 or 4 views for different events. So again, this is something that is quite unique for this type of data analysis. It's not unique if you do research in the lab, but if you go out during a real competition, it's quite challenging. We also work together with coaches, esteemed coaches from all around the world, and you will see their names in the reports, that they helped us to design together the results and the number of variables we wanted. And I think that was another unique element of this project, because the coaches then could take the data and translate it in a easy language for coaches and athletes and others to understand. Right, therefore, and here we are today to launch and celebrate the reports. As Seb's video indicated, we have 38 reports. You can see the breakdown in terms of different events. We're talking about over 1,500 pages So it's something remarkable, really, what has been produced here. And I would like to take the opportunity to thank, the IAAF, obviously giving us the opportunity. Obviously, Stefan and Harald, were very crucial to the success of this project. So we feel kind of a privilege to be given this opportunity. So, and we are here today to share, the data with you. So this will provide valuable information for years to come. I think we feel we made a history, but obviously everything now is in the public domain. So we hope the whole world, kind of appreciates the work, and obviously we are happy for further work with you guys. So at this stage, I will pause and ask my colleague Catherine just to give us a flavor. A very small sample, very small sample, because we're talking about huge work, of some kind of highlights, key findings from some reports, so you get an idea. But obviously the real job is to download the reports later and read the whole content. Thank you.
Thank you, Nassos. So moving on to a brief kind of overview of 5 of the events that we analysed in London last year. And starting off with the men's 100 metres final. So we know these athletes are phenomenal. When they get to their max velocity, they can be running at speeds up to 40 kilometres an hour. But what we were interested in here was, what were the individual segments doing? And what this showed us was that in the max velocity phase, or when they're approaching that phase, they were approaching speeds of nearly 80 kilometres an hour with their foot, when it was swinging in the air. And Bolt was the fastest in this phase of the medalists and of all athletes, and he was obviously trying to catch up his position from a relatively poor start, and you can read more about that in the individual report. So obviously that was remarkable finding from the 100 metres final. So moving on to a field event in the women's discus, and Perkovic is a very dominant athlete obviously in the women's discus, and if you look at the bottom 3 kind of graphics, they are the bird's eye view of the discus path of the gold medalist, silver medalist, and the bronze medalist. And what we found from our analysis was that Perkovic has a very long phase for her transition, and this has manifested itself, so that's the yellow section on the graph, this manifests itself in an increase in velocity of 4.2 meters per second, which was far superior to any of her fellow medalists, who had increases in this phase of 0.5 meters per second and below. So again, just an example of where they are showing themselves to be a little bit more exceptional than their other medalists. So moving on to another women's event, and that was the steeplechase. So we focused our analysis on the final water jump, and this proved to be instrumental in determining the final positions of the athletes. So you can see that Coburn and Jepkemoi, as they approach the barrier, are neck and neck. But at this point, Coburn, our analysis shows that that she has a step length which is over half a metre greater than Jepkemoi, so she starts to excel at this point. And from the barrier, she has a step into the water which is over 1.2 metres greater than Jepkemoi. So when she's leaving with a speed that's 3 kilometres an hour, nearly greater than Jepkemoi, which allows her to have more momentum for the final stages. So again, a very interesting finding and showing how instrumental the water jump is for these athletes. So if we come to our final 2 events that we're presenting here today, in the men's high jump, our analysis of Barshim, who obviously is an exceptional high jumper, showed that there were 4 kind of key events or key areas that we were interested in or showed him to have an exceptional jump. And they are, we found that he had a gently curved approach in comparison with some of his competitors, and by that we mean it wasn't too steep or too shallow. He had short contact time, so very, very quick contacts with the ground coming into his jump. And he was characterised by a large takeoff distance. So he was over 1.5 metres away from the bar when he took off. There was only one other athlete who had this takeoff distance, so it's much more in excess of what we typically see in the high jump. And this all was combined with him peaking with his centre of mass. So if you look at number 4 at the bar there, So his peak of his center of mass was timed perfectly over the bar, which we didn't see in the other competitors as much. So again, an exceptional performance, an exceptional combination of these factors led to this performance. So finally, if we look at something a little more in the timing element of the sprints, the 4x100 meters relay. So we knew coming into this event that the United States were obviously strong contenders for a gold medal, and Great Britain and Northern Ireland actually caused a bit of an upset in this. So our analysis showed that Great Britain and Northern Ireland were similar in terms of the United States, in terms of their running time. So by that we mean the times out of the transition zones. But it was the transition zones where Great Britain and Northern Ireland excelled. Particularly in transitions 2 and 3, they were the fastest in terms of the handover. And this meant that for all 3 transitions, Great Britain and Northern Ireland were 0.05 of a second quicker than the United States. The run time was the same, but the transition time overall was 0.05 of a second quicker than the United States. Very interesting finding that we established through Lysander's analysis. So that's it from the overview of the report. So thank you for your attention, and I will hand back to Harold to continue with proceedings.
Thank you, Dr. Bissers. Thank you, Dr. Tucker. I would like to welcome now Ada Bolden, 4 times Olympic medal winner and a successful coach now. My first question to you, Ada, is how important do you think biomechanics is for perfecting technique and performance in athletics?
Well, for me, when I got to my coach, John Smith, it was like a whole new world was opened up to me, because John was he was big about showing video, and none of it made any sense to me. But what I discovered back then and what I do now with my kids, my oldest athlete is 20, my youngest is 10. Some of you may have seen one of my younger athletes, Brianna Williams, this week. Even if they don't understand it, I found that if you show them proper movements, proper biomechanics, getting them to train. For example, sometimes I have them push a heavy sled. They hate it, but they understand from watching the video, when you push this way, this is going to make your start better. And you guys saw Brianna Williams start this week, but nobody saw her in October pushing that sled. The reason I can get her to push the sled is because going over the video every single week, it sort of reinforces to the athlete that, look, I may not understand this, I may not even like it, but if I do it, it will make this part of my race better. It will make me superior to my competition when the gun goes off.
I think what it does, it reflects actually that biomechanics explains natural behavior, and this, I think what the athletes feel is what they're supposed to do. And but how did you actually get into the biomechanics? Have you studied it yourself? Have you watched the videos? How did you create an understanding for all these figures and graphs and details?
I'm a lot more clued into the numbers that you guys produce. Like, for example, looking at that video, the chart showing that essentially Great Britain and the United States ran the exact same running time, but it was the transition time throughout the zone that essentially gave Great Britain the win. That's the kind of stuff that I've always loved. That stuff. That's the nerd in me coming out, and I've always enjoyed that stuff. But I think when you are able to put numbers, athletes tend to be fairly cerebral, and when you can put numbers in front of an athlete and say, this is why we have to practice our transition through that zone and why it has to be sharp, because you can have the fastest guys, as the USA did, and if your transitions are poor, there goes the gold medal. So for me, it really boils down to being able to put something that is indisputable in front of the athlete.
And there's another element that maybe you have experienced is the fact of injury prevention through measuring certain values and explaining why things should be done differently.
Yeah, for me, I'm probably most proud of the fact that my athletes this year have been injury-free. And with Brianna Williams, I think it's probably the best job that I've done of making sure that I took care of her in a way where a lot of her peers, I mean, she's 16 years old. She won't be 16 and a half until September. And most of her peers are injured. Most of them missed this meet. She ran the age group world record in March, and she set essentially personal bests here in July. And I know that that's because every time I see her starting to deviate from what we know is proper form in practice, I remind her, hey, you stick that leg in the back and let it, not circle back properly, that's going to be a hamstring injury. You don't want to have a hamstring injury. So again, this is me taking the things that maybe to them are not easily digestible, but if you tell an athlete, if you do A, then it will result in B not happening, I think it's a lot easier for them to digest. So a lot of what we go over in our film study is not just form for form's sake or form for speed's sake. It is sometimes form for the sake of if you have good technique, you will minimize your risk of injury.
Super. Thank you very much, Edo. I would like to throw the floor open now for the media to ask questions. I would like to highlight that the team of Leeds Becker will stay here for the coaches conference, and they are available for you for questions during the coffee break and after the conference. So I would like to ask the media now for any questions they may have, and please mention your name and the media outlet you're from. Yeah, okay. Okay, is there anybody else in the room who has a question to the team on stage? Please feel free, we have microphones here that... We're fine. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. We are now going to proceed with the coaches conference. If you have any questions and would like to connect with the teams, please ask Yanis. He's available and he will actually facilitate the contact with us. And thank you very much, and give the media a moment to exit if they wish to. Otherwise, they're very welcome to stay during the conference. And thank you very much for your attention.